Okay, first of all,
Hello, Clara. My name's Jordan Owen. Being that you are a member of Stop Porn Culture, you may have heard my name or even seen some of my videos, so I won't waste your time with introductions. I am an unrelenting advocate for the porn industry, and as such, I am similarly unrelenting in my criticism of Gail Dines and Stop Porn Culture. Watch my videos Anti-Porn, the New Fascism, and Dear Wheelock College for a good introduction as to why. I'm writing you today because I read your article titled Violence, Teenagers, and Gonzo Porn, which appeared first in Bad Housekeeping and later on the Stop Porn Culture website. Please understand that as I write this, that I am doing so from a thoughtful, cordial, and non-aggressive position. I do not hold you in contempt, nor do I wish for you to feel threatened. I say this for two reasons. One, your organization, Stop Porn Culture, has responded to me in the past by characterizing what I do as creepy, disturbing, obsessed, mentally deranged, misogynistic, sexist, womb envying, and any other stigmatizing language intended to shame me into silence and dodge the reality that I am providing factual, well-reasoned arguments in the face of their empty propaganda. Secondly, I am hoping to reach you on an intellectual level. Your SPC associates will no doubt want you to think that I am condescending to you or otherwise talking down to you or trying to intimidate you. I am not. I sincerely hope that my words will reach your intellect, and if they do not, I will certainly not presume that it's because your intellect is inadequate. When I first read your article, the most prominent reaction in my mind was that your article was simply a point-by-point recitation of Gail Dines' arguments that I've already addressed in previous videos. I'll deal with this quickly. The term gonzo refers to content where the performers break the fourth wall. It has nothing to do with the nature of the content being presented therein, and Gail's only source for her definition in Pornland is an anonymously written internet post that does not define gonzo in any way that supports her argument. Choking, gagging, and anal fisting are not commonplace in gonzo pornography or in pornography in general. This sort of content does exist, but as I pointed out in my video, Gag Me, Fuck You, the websites that Gail cites as examples are extraordinarily unpopular based on their viewership statistics. What is exponentially more popular is websites that feature well-produced, artistically driven erotica. And no, such high-end porn is not put out by the industry to groom you for more revolting material. Gail has never produced a single piece of evidence to support this supposed industry-wide plot to acclimate the naive into a seedy world of violence and degradation, and it is nothing more than a conspiracy theory. BDSM, what you describe as a restrained woman being triple penetrated, etc., is an actual subculture within pornography, not just within pornography, but within sexual society at large. Gail and Stop Porn Culture have gone out of their way to condemn this lifestyle as nothing more than the sexual glorification of domestic abuse and violence against women, even going so far as to say that it belongs within the realm of concern of Amnesty International and is in violation of international torture laws. All of this ignores the reality that BDSM is a subculture that values trust, communication, compassion, and attentiveness, the characteristics required for the exchange of power involved to be a celebration of the connection between persons involved and not brutal torture. I realize this seems paradoxical to an outsider, but I would strongly urge you to look into the perspectives of people who actually participate in this lifestyle rather than taking Gail and company at face value. But those are just a few examples of the egregious errors that you made in your article, which are ultimately Gail's errors, not yours. I was about to chalk this up to simply another Dinesian scoring brownie points, but then I read your bio at the end of the article and realized you were 17. That changes the manner of my response considerably. No, I do not look down on you or see you as a child. I do, however, feel that as someone of greater years, I can hopefully give you some much-needed perspective. I am 30 years old as of this past September. I was born in 1983. From the time of my birth up through the early 90s, there was an underground cinematic phenomenon known as video nasties. This was an offshoot of the exploitation and grindhouse genres of the 1970s, and it was produced for the sole purpose of displaying the most shocking, disturbing, and grotesque content imaginable. The game played by kids of various ages was to rent these movies and dare each other to watch them, seeing who could last the longest. There was a tremendous amount of controversy surrounding such films, and the fears of parents groups and conservative lobbyists were not unlike those of stop porn culture with regards to Gonzo. What would it mean for a generation of boys to be raised on this filth? Wouldn't long-term exposure to this sort of thing desensitize them to violence? Were they learning to look at sex and violence as one and the same? Examples of such movies include I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left, and in both cases I'm referring to the originals, not their more modern remakes. Both are sleazy hack jobs designed not to scare you so much as just nauseate you into submission, and I wouldn't recommend either one. Nevertheless, if you were to watch those movies, you'd find scenes that were infinitely more disturbing, albeit simulated, than anything Gail has ever complained about. In tandem with this phenomenon were similar controversies surrounding heavy metal and video games, two of my favorite things. Parents reeled in terror as activist academics, pop culture crusaders, and political stooges warned of a generation of degenerate psychotic youth that loomed on the horizon, especially with the advent of bands like Cannibal Corpse and games like Mortal Kombat. By the time my generation got to high school, our parents were being told that rap music, Korn, Marilyn Manson, Beavis and Butthead, and a whole host of other evils were going to corrupt the youth and turn us into the next Columbine shooters. Somehow, we grew up into adults that are pretty much handling things as well as our parents' generation did. I bring this up to point out that Gail's arguments against the supposed evils of pornography are nothing new. And yes, even back in my childhood, parents groups were saying that the availability of these things had reached such a fever pitch that individual parents could not be expected to keep track of it all themselves and needed the government to intervene. There's truly nothing new under the sun. What really struck me in your article, however, was how you were attributing the immature behavior of your classmates to pornography. I was 13 the year you were born. Let me give you a few anecdotes from my experiences in the subsequent 3 or 4 years alone. There was a group of boys at the school I went to who rounded up various hot girls and declared them to be they hoes. And yes, they were all white preppies appropriating hip-hop lingo. These girls were strictly off limits to anyone outside their approved circle, but these boys were too chicken shit to actually come at the other boys, so they'd settle the various strayings of their harem by beating up the girls instead. I've seen girls in tears with bloody noses and bruises. One game the guys in this clique liked to play was a game where they'd take a girl's arm and hold it down across a desk, then each guy would punch the arm 5 times as hard as they could. If the girl shook, cried, or responded in any way, shape, or form, the guy who elicited the response would get 10 free licks, meaning punches. Seeing as how the girl would inevitably react, that would mean that each guy, about 5 of them at a time, would get to take 10 free licks, resulting in some 75 blows for each girl made to play this game. I know of at least one girl who was hospitalized from that. I was fortunate enough that my parents and I moved to another town, and I finished high school at a school that was not so savage. I could give you many, many more anecdotes of similarly horrific behavior, but these are memories from a vault that I prefer to keep locked. A few years ago, I was moving to a new apartment across town, and as I cleaned out my closet, I found my journals from high school. Although these journals were thoughtful and introspective, I had originally started them at the suggestion of my father, who wanted me to keep a detailed record of the behavior of this group of boys, both how they harassed me and others. When I sat down and read those journals as an adult, I was hit by a resurgence of memories that I'd hoped I'd never look back on, and it was not a pleasant experience. To the contrary, it was painful, heartbreaking, and terrifying to look back on all of that. But I did have a new perspective as an adult, that those boys, for all their usurped popularity, were obviously pathetic losers. I checked up on some of them on Facebook. One of the worst ones, one of the most vile offenders who would proclaim at length that a woman's place was in the home, that a man had to be the head of the house, that bitches needed a smack if they got out of line, etc., now lists his occupation as stay-at-home dad. No, I'm not suggesting that he's abusing his children in any way, or that there's anything wrong with the mom being the breadwinner, just that he's a lazy couch potato and that irony is a cruel mistress. In those days, internet pornography was in its infancy, and gonzo porn was an industry term and little more. If I had to point to a specific causal factor for why those boys behaved the way they did, as well as the cold-hearted indifference of certain administrators that allowed it to go on, it was that many of them went to a local Southern Baptist church that advocated a brutally traditional viewpoint that was contemptuous of women and gays in the extreme, along with other hateful attitudes. They were so vociferous in their viewpoints that the Episcopal church that I attended actually had a meeting of its youth group to discuss what we as kids should do if we were ever confronted by people from this church. Nevertheless, I can't hold up that church as the cause of the problem and pretend that doing away with it would have solved the problem full stop. To do so would be to deny the many members of that congregation who were themselves aghast at many of the misogynistic and otherwise hateful views being espoused, as well as the parents who pressured the school to eventually get those boys under control. But even more so, I don't wish to negate the personal responsibility that those boys, and now men, have for their actions. In a just society, there can be no sympathy given to external influences. The perpetrators alone have to bear the burden. By contrast, Clara, I just can't get that worked up by what you describe in your article. The one problem in all of the behavior you described in your article was the matter of boys posting nude photos of girls they know on the internet, i.e. revenge porn. Revenge porn is absolutely a problem, but paradoxically, it is not increased control over sexuality that will solve the problem. That's what stigmatized female nudity to the point that it could be used to shame in the first place. The solution is a society that is so sexually open and expressive that nude photos of a person are rendered meaningless. The solution, time and again, is less control, not more. The underlying mechanism of revenge porn is the overall sex-negative attitude of a society which compels the subsequent viewer to reconcile his appreciation for the image with his social contempt for sexuality by making fun of the girl in the picture. Without the underlying contempt for sex, there is no psychological basis for the nude image to matter. In other words, think of it this way. Do you think nudists are ashamed to be seen by other nudists? But other than that, if the examples you provided, a boy sticking a girl's pubic hair in another boy's mouth, a girl's boyfriend telling her not to resist before he kisses her, boys looking at porn on their mobiles on the train, a boy asking you to send him porn because he's going to be away from Wi-Fi, and a boy asking to slap your ass with his dick, are the kinds of things that have you concerned, then I can assure you that you're concerned over nothing. These are not indicators of some great problem of society, just boys that are in the process of growing up. Part of growing up is making an asshole of yourself so that you can learn what behavior is and is not appropriate. This is not to dismiss any of the responsibility for their behavior. Quite the opposite. They have to be held accountable so that they can learn better. That some boys and girls reach a point where they do lasting and severe damage to another person is not the result of the porn industry, but the result of many years of failure on the part of parents, teachers, and other adults integral to that child's development. In some of your examples, however, what the children were doing is none of your concern at all. What people are looking at on the train is none of your business. See my video, Porn Harm Smackdown, Dawn Hawkins, for more on that matter. One of the examples you provided stood out as very odd to me. For example, you talk about one of your friends walking drunk into a park with a boy at night, and he never tried to make a move on her. Your criticism was that this behavior was described as so nice rather than so normal. That is a profound example of something that Gail's followers do regularly, seeing problems where none exist. Yes, nothing that happened in that encounter in the park was a problem, yet you attribute a wider social context that makes it an issue. This is one of the many problems of gender feminism, that rape and sexual assault are so all-pervasive or seen as so all-pervasive that even positive encounters must be analyzed for their underlying meaning, lest our collective thought process ever deviate from the correct path. Another issue I have to raise is how you say that you've heard sexual consent referred to as de-romanticizing. See, you don't provide any context for that, which forces me to ask a question. Did the person you heard say that understand what consent was, and more importantly, do you? If the person was saying that ignoring requests to stop or violently assaulting someone was a loving act, then they are psychotic, delusional, or both. However, I have to wonder if you're using the gender feminist definition of consent, which has alternately been called enthusiastic consent or the affirmative consent standard, and involves a man getting a calm, level-headed verbal yes from his partner for each and every act he performs, literally to the point of asking, "May I kiss you? May I put my hands in your shirt? May I lift your shirt off? May I remove your bra? May I touch your breasts? May I remove your pants? May I penetrate you?" etc. This sort of thing, on the other hand, is profoundly unromantic, and as you will learn the closer you get to these people, it is not designed by people who actually want you to be able to enjoy sex, but by people who want to be a wet blanket on your good time. People who won't be satisfied until you're as miserable and hateful as they are. I don't know if you're sexually active, and I won't ask because you're underage, but I will say that it's highly likely that in your life, and probably in the near future if you haven't already, you'll find that sex is an amazing, beautiful, wonderful act that is profoundly satisfying when it's done right. When that day comes, I hope you'll stop and realize just how awful these people you're getting involved with really are. The people who want to dictate to you the terms on which you may legally, morally, and psychologically consent to sex, whether you agree with their standards or not, and who presume to be able to make those decisions for you simply because they are older and have the same type of genitalia. But controlling the sex act itself is only one facet of how these people wish to take advantage of you. Right now, you are in a position that is life-changing for everyone who reaches it. You are about to go out into the world and be able to choose what direction your life takes. That is your opportunity, and it is crucial that you be aware of its significance because there are those out there who will want to turn your opportunity into their opportunity. Feminists from Christina Hoff Sommers to Nina Hartley and many more who have become disillusioned with modern feminism have commented at length on the recruitment process used to get young women into gender feminism. At your age, Clara, it is very, very likely that a woman will have encountered a lot of boys who were jerks, some more than others, but nevertheless enough to leave you disgusted and frustrated with boys in general. The recruiters of gender feminism, those college professors and pseudo-intellectuals, take advantage of this and try to convince you that your experiences are a part of some grand conspiracy known as the patriarchy, when really they're just part of growing up. The result, if you capitulate, is that you will become a part of one of the most notoriously hateful, bitter, cynical, angry, frustrated, malicious groups in the modern world, and the baggage from your high school years will be used to stunt your development as an adult. In recent times, there has been a campaign for LGBT youth called It Gets Better, in which various gay public figures comment on how life becomes so much better as an adult and that kids should hold on to that fact rather than getting lost in their own angst and alienation to the point of committing suicide or otherwise ruining their lives. I honestly wish that campaign was targeting not just gay kids, but kids in general. When I was in high school, dealing with those bullies I described above, a well-meaning teacher told me that I needed to try to get along with the other kids because these were the most important years of my life. I didn't dare say it out loud, but I remember thinking that attitude, more than anything else, is why kids shoot up their schools. Trust me, your high school years are going to seem like a joke in just a few short years. Use your upcoming time in college to study the things that will allow you to pursue a career in what makes you happy, not what someone has told you you're obligated to study and pursue out of some obligation to your gender. If you need to study feminism at all, study it critically. You will find at every turn that it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. You do not have a 1 in 4 chance of being raped. The conviction rate for rape and sexual assault is on par with the conviction rate of other violent crimes. You will be paid what your work is worth, not 75% to the dollar that a man makes. And the Bechdel test is meaningless. That's just a few examples, and there are many, many more. Think about how many end-of-the-world prophecies there have been throughout the years and how none of them have come true. By the same token, gender feminists warn of a world where men raised on pornography will take control and subjugate women in horrible, despicable ways. They have been beating this drum since the 1960s, and one generation of men after another has grown up and raised a subsequent generation, and this dark apocalyptic future has not come to pass. Your newfound buddy Gail warns of a world where sexually undesirable women are left out to starve en masse by a ruling class of men who were raised on gonzo pornography. This sinister future has not come to pass with any other format of pornography through the ages. Why would it happen now? The simple answer is that it won't. This is feminism's version of the cargo cult. Just as indigenous peoples have worshipped a proverbial cargo vessel that never arrives but could at any minute, and just as Christians anticipate the second coming of a savior that never arrives but could at any minute, so the feminists warn of this pornographic apocalypse that is always tediously just over the horizon but never seems to actually materialize. It is out of respect for you as a human being, and obviously one who aspires to do great things, that I implore you not to waste your time chasing this dragon. After I got done reading those old journals of mine, I destroyed them. I shredded the pages and put them out with the trash. I did not want to carry those horrible memories with me, in this case, literally. Living well is the best revenge, and I take that revenge every day with pleasure. I encourage you to do the same, Clara. Don't let these people suck you dry and turn you into the next generation of hate-mongering feminist scum. Yours kindly, Jordan. If you're coming to youtube.com/JordanOwen42 for the first time, I invite you to subscribe for future videos, pick up a copy of my novel Eros Empire, available wherever fine books are sold, and check out my exciting new science fiction fantasy web series, The Vessel Chronicles. Thank you for your time.